Okay, good evening, Goffstown, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Goffstown Select Board of Monday, June 22nd, 2026. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Which goes as follows. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from June 8th meeting? If so, it's...
Make a motion, we accept the public and non-public minutes of June 8th with corrections if need be.
Seconded.
Okay, motion by Mark, second by Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Announcements. It's a pretty important one. A traffic notice. Henry Bridge Road project, effective June 23rd, 2026. That's tomorrow. Bridge work over the Piscataquag River will require full closure of the bridge and pedestrian walkway for several weeks to replace the bridge decking and address corrosion of the structural steel below. Beginning June 23rd, after school is out, closure will last 24/7 until the project is complete. A detour route will be established via Elm Street and Main Street / Mast Road. For more information about the project, please visit the construction project's webpage under Public Works on the town website for additional information and updates. Public comment. Is anyone here for public comment today? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, we'll close public comments, and we'll move on to number 4, Medvil Cooperative.
Hello.
Hello. Come on up, have a seat, and just state your name and your address for the record, please.
I'm Donna Lane. I'm a CDBG consultant, and that's Community Development Block Grant. And Kim?
I'm Kim Caveman. I'm project manager for infrastructure project at Medvil Cooperative, and I live there. I have for the last 19 years.
Okay, you want to give us a little rundown of what...
Sure. I assume you've got something in your packets, but basically, you probably know we're a low to moderate income, over 55 community in Goffstown here. We have 301 homes. We have 3.5 miles of infrastructure, private roads. We don't qualify for anything other than they're private. All of our infrastructure is private as well. So we're looking. We've just secured a fresh water groundwater trust fund award of $2 million to support the water part of the project. 20% of that is grant and 80% is loan, so we're taking a pretty hefty loan out to cover those costs. The infrastructure is over close to 45 years old, and it needs to be replaced. We've got an estimate of close to $11 million to replace all of it. We're taking it in smaller pieces. We're going to try to do a quarter of it, and four phases. First phase is going to use up all the $2 million that we have for an award from Freshwater Groundwater Trust Fund. And at the same time, we need to do the sewer as well. We have aging sewer lines as well. And the main lines and the lines to the homes need to be replaced. And since we're ripping up the roads, no reason to, we absolutely have to do the sewer at the same time. Otherwise, we're ripping the roads up again to do that. So we're looking for a CDBG grant, and we're hoping the town applies for that for us, and that would help us to finish that part of the project, the first phase. So, any questions?
Any questions?
Oh, good.
Can we hear about the grant?
You can. So CDBG is HUD funds that come to the state, to the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority, and so then there's the 5 big cities just get an allotment, and then the rest of the communities compete for the funds, but only a municipality can ask for the funds. So that's why they're coming to you and not going direct, like they could go direct to DES, but they can't. They have to go through a municipality. So people tend to call it a pass-through type of thing, but only a municipality can apply for it. And so that's why we're coming to you. So apparently, 17 years ago, the town did one for them as well. They're huge. They're a gigantic co-op, 300 homes. So back then, there were some leach fields or something, I don't know, septic parts. But it's been almost 20 years, and it's an $11 million project, and they need more money. And so a CDBG is we apply for the funds, and we have to have a public hearing before we can do that. So we're hoping to do that in a couple weeks here, if you guys are game to move forward. And so CDBG, what we'll do, the main questions I'm always asked about CDBG is what's it gonna cost the town, right?
Right.
So we build a budget for admin. So when you send the contract out to the lawyer, you pay the lawyer, but then you get reimbursed from the CDBG later on. Anything else, like newspaper notices, stuff like that will get reimbursed. You can actually pay for town time, but you gotta keep track of it. It's not that much town time. It's, in the beginning it's a little bit, but it really isn't. So I've been doing CDBG for 40 years, so I work for a lot of municipalities. And the couple that did charge for town time afterwards said it wasn't worth the paperwork to keep track of the town time. It wasn't that much. And on a project like this, money will come in very large chunks. So we'll say $200,000. So it won't be a lot of time to, take a check in and send some money out. So there's and then you have to hire a CDBG administrator to oversee it because there's all the federal compliance, labor, and all that stuff. That's built in. Everything's built in. The intent is never for the town to have to pay anything, okay? And then a lien goes on the property that says, okay, we gave you $460,000 of this grant, $470,000 of this grant. There's a lien on the property. If they went and turned around and sold the place, sorry, a couple of years later, that lien would kick in, and they'd have to repay based on that lien to clear the title and stuff. And even if that comes up short, it's based on what, drops 5% a year. If it comes up short, no, they will never come to the town. It's only what the lien can bring back in.
So if they default, we're not on the hook?
Exactly, because who would do it, right? No town would do it. But that, in 40 years, we haven't had anybody default like that either. Especially, you're not gonna default a place like this. But that protection's in there so that you don't worry about it going to tax money. So it's built in so that there's no tax money ever involved in this. Not supposed to cost the town anything at all. You get reimbursed.
Well, am I correct? It'll cost us a little, but we should get reimbursed.
Oh,
for
you
it.
get
So
reimbursed.
it
In
would
the
be
end, it
net.
won't cost
So we
you.
still have to approve that, yes, we pay it out, but we'll get it back.
But in general,
minimal.
you only pay out like the legal.
Yeah.
So $500 at best to pay the lawyers to look at a contract, maybe a couple $100 to get your administrator in, less than $1,000. And then also, if you do get kicked into a single audit, like if you're gonna bring in over $1 million one year, and this is part of the reason why you got kicked into the single audit, there'll be money, thousands set aside for that as well. So if you do have a single audit, then whatever percent this was of that would pay for that percent of the audit too. Again, another, not supposed to cost you anything at all.
Any other questions?
So there's town water going to all the houses now, or
We have, we're supplied with town water.
from Grasmere, or?
Yes, from Grasmere.
And you have sewer lines to all the houses, or just
We
some?
have sewer lines to all the houses. It's private septic that we maintain. It's mainly our issues right now are sewer lines. When they were first put in, they were very thin-walled lines. Several have collapsed. If they crack, roots get in them. They just basically need to be replaced as we replace the rest of the infrastructure. As I said earlier, it doesn't make sense to rip the roads up, not to do both.
Yeah.
And so we're looking for mainly to do sewer lines, but probably the grant would include some water if we needed more on the water side as well. But for the most part, it will help us to cover the sewer lines as well.
Thank you.
So if we decide to do this, can you just tell me the process? Do you need our admin, need help from Derek, or?
So if you decide to go ahead and schedule a public hearing, it's actually 3 public hearings, all at one night, 10 minutes probably max. One is to talk about the project, to submit, about possibility of submitting an application for up to $750,000 for this project. The second, so that's pretty clear cut, it's a project. The second one is for this is kind of silly because we're not doing this, but anti-displacement relocation assistance plan. Every time we ask for federal funds, it's project specific, we have to readopt that for the project, which says if we displace any household or business, we're doing water and sewer lines, we're not doing something to displace anybody. And, they'll make sure that there's water running, they'll throw hoses in and stuff. So it doesn't apply to our project, but we have to go through it and say, if we do displace anybody, then we'll follow the Uniform Relocation Act, which means basically we take care of people, If we were demolishing some apartments and redoing them or something, then it would matter, but not here. And then the last one is a housing and community development plan. And it's just a plan that has nice goals in it, which say, you want to have septic and water and sewer that meet DES regulations for everybody. You want to have affordable housing for everybody, or, decent, safe, sanitary housing for all income groups. So the last time you had, and you can't ask for CDBG without a housing community development plan. It's not like specifically we're going to do this and this. It's just nice goals, And so the last one you had was at least, 20 years ago, the last time we applied for CDBG, which nobody's going to go looking for that one. So I, sent along the generic one that towns that haven't had one. Sometimes you have them in your master plans, usually not. So this is a nice one, just has the national goals, and it has specific goals for like the municipalities, but they're generic goals. They're just that kind of thing, So we would go through all 3 public hearings. Boom, boom, boom.
On one night.
Yeah, and then you would vote to submit the application, take a vote on that, after you ask for, obviously, public comment, and then vote to adopt the anti-displacement relocation assistance plan and vote to adopt the housing community development plan. That plan will be good for 3 years. So if you come in, you come up with an idea for something else to do CDBG-wise, then we could use that for 3 more years. In general, you just keep readopting the same one over and over and over again.
So what you actually need from us is one night to have the hearings. You don't need any clerical help or anything from us, and you need us to front $1,500 or something like that.
Not now,
Not now, okay.
Well, how much money do we need to front?
nothing, and maybe next April, if this goes to your lawyer, and if it's not and if you don't want to, then sometimes the consultant might put it out for you if you have to do that, but it's just for something like that. I don't know if you need to approve anything like that or not, but.
Well, I think we need to know what the expected cost outlay would be first.
In the beginning, when you get the CDBG and then the grant agreements going around before it goes to governor and council, it comes to the town reads it and signs off. And that costs somewhere between generally $300 and $500 at best. I mean, I just got a bill the other day for $500 and I said, wow, I haven't seen them that high, but it's about there. Then there'll be a newspaper notice for $200 to go out for a grant administrator. And then you shouldn't be putting anything else out. And then usually before the project ends, well, it depends how long it takes. You might bump into a couple years of single audit and then we just kind of order your money in between. Or generally what happens with a single audit is, say it closed down now, we'd say, okay, have your auditors tell us how much it's going to cost next year for your audit, and we'll get you the money in advance, and then you just have it ready, because the project will close out. So basically, what would happen tonight, if you could give us if you would consider moving forward, and give us a public hearing date, and then I would prepare the script for the public hearing. And first I'd prepare the notice for the newspaper and send it over to Derek for approval. And make sure the co-op, Derek, and I all see it. I'd send it off to the newspaper. And then we'd have the public hearing, and I'd send over a script about 2 weeks in advance with the script, and then show up and read it, or you guys could read it.
Okay. Anybody other have any questions or concerns? Do you need,
Yeah, Derek, do you have any questions or concerns?
yeah.
No, I do not.
District
It was
one?
just looking as, does the board want to partner on the application?
You can't do otherwise.
I'll move to hold the 3 necessary public hearings for the Medvil grant application as described on July 13th, is that the right?
If you could just leave it open-ended, I think
Any-
what we had talked about
That'd
is
be
doing
great.
it July 13th, because that way they can possibly get in for the next earliest round, but if we do need a little bit of flexibility.
I'll second that.
Just have a question, does that tie us into the entire project if we start?
That's again, you're holding a public hearing.
Right,
And you're gonna discuss the application, the displacement plan, as well as the community housing plan. I did find the ones that the town did back in, I think it was 2006.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, at least electronic formats
Wow.
in the public hearing. So we do have some of that information that we can pull up. And then after that public hearing, you would receive input from the public. You would vote whether or not to move forward with the application.
all right, there's a motion on the table. Any questions, any more comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, number 5, department heads, municipal fleet analysis. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys want to come up or yell at each other?
I didn't hear what you said.
I'm sorry.
Department heads, fleet analysis.
Oh,
I said it loud enough.
You didn't go like this, Jim.
A bookmobile.
just us?
Yeah, just you.
Oh, okay.
No, I think Rick's coming to hang out.
Oh,
So what you have in your packet is you have reports from police department, fire department, and DPW on a couple of different models. I also shared with the board some of the items the police chief and I are still working on with, it's a little bit different model. It's enterprise fleet management where it's not, they kind of are looking at what your resale market is as well. So we're still trying to digest all that information. But it might just be helpful to kind of go through what police has for a recommendation, answer any questions, and fire has for a recommendation, any questions, and then we can talk about DPWs as well.
Can I ask a question first? There was an enterprise fleet management attachment. Was that specific to any department?
So when we sent them, we sent all of our town vehicles from all the departments. So I think you see it's got like 31 vehicles on there. So the one thing that if you were going to look more townwide and have kind of a fleet management service, you'd probably want to do that with your lighter duty vehicles. Versus they didn't offer a whole lot with the heavy duty or any of the construction equipment that Adam uses or the apparatus that fire uses.
Okay. Well, police is the first one in our package, so.
Of course.
What the hell?
why not? Really, just for you guys, I put together this analysis. Really, we talked to Ford's vendor. Through some of the research I've looked at through the state, basically the traditional lease, as we normally do on a personal level, is not an option for us. I mean, we just cannot lease a vehicle for mileage and all that. But Ford does, as you see in your packet, they do have a way for law enforcement to lease vehicles. You'll see in the packet, looking through it, just kind of broke out the analysis of like the years on, how we do it now traditionally based on a lease. At a real quick high level, the lease option that you can go through Ford with the 3-year lease, essentially what they're doing is you're paying a little bit extra per year for them to just let you finance the car. So if we do a 3-year lease with them or a 5-year lease with them, we're going to pay a fee in the long end. Some of it's different pricing depending on how we go about it. But essentially, if the car is $43,000 like we pay now cash, we're going to end up paying about $47,000 long term. But it just basically does month to month, quarter to quarter, depending on what you want to do, of how you want to pay for the car. You know, it just depends on what the board wants to do. Based on what I'm seeing in my analysis, you're going to pay a little bit more long term. It's just going to stabilize the money throughout the year to year. But my only concern and my thought looking at it was the car price is going to be the car price. So even if we stabilize it in a lease for a multi-year per car, eventually that car price is going to go up like everything else, and that lease number is going to go up. So even though year to year might be stabilized in the first few 3 to 5 years, we're going to see that cost eventually move up with the leasing and the pricing of the car, but you're also tacking on the finance charge as well. And then again, to Derek's point, we looked at we're still kind of digesting some of the enterprise. That was something new I've heard locally. There's not a lot of departments or municipalities utilizing that in the state. They're really out in different states, but they're trying to get into New Hampshire. There is one that we've talked to that is in the very, very beginning portions of it, and they still haven't seen the full effect of the enterprise lease. I know one department locally close to us uses it, but not for their fleet. They use it more, not their main police cars, they use it for more like their undercover assets. So they can just lease out those cars very, I guess, pretty quickly and pretty cheaply, I guess. They just do a big deal with them, and that's how they do it. Because they don't need Ford Interceptors for undercover assets, they use other vehicles. So that's kind of the quick, high-level analysis of what it is. I mean, there's more information in here. I really broke down some numbers, but.
And if I could add, just, you know, the police department, we've been pretty consistent with buying the 3 cruisers, and then the cruisers just kind of step down to the command side, and then they actually go to the other departments as well. So if the board were to do like a shorter term lease program where you're not purchasing the vehicles, what that's going to do is that's going to shift a cost, additional cost over to DPW, Town Hall. Our building inspector uses one of the old cruisers. So, you know, if you do look to change that model,
It'll have a knock-on effect, is what you're saying.
yes. Yeah.
But the 3-year that you presented was a buyout at the end, correct? Because it did not impact that pass-down
They
ability.
all
It was
have-
just like stretching it a little bit.
Yeah, they have a buyout, and I basically got them to say to me, it's on you, me, to go to different dealerships with said car, or 3, or however we're gonna get them, and try to find the best deal for which dealership will buy them from us. Whereas right now, essentially at the end of our, we'll just call it 8 to 10 years life cycle, Adam throws it on Municipal, he has nothing to do with it, he just throws it out there, people come to him, and they just bid on it and take it. Whereas I feel like for us, with the lease option, we are gonna pay a little bit more for the finance, but then it's up to our department to run around to different, you know, dealerships to figure out what would be the best price they would give us to get that, maximize that revenue source. From my understanding, a lot of agencies, when they do this, it's almost 50-50 in the state, because when I polled a lot of the chiefs around the state, a lot of them are doing it, but some of them aren't. It just depends on what works for them. But what's happening is they're basically going around and saying, okay, what's the best, you know, what are we getting for the best revenue source back or the return? And they're just using that capital or that return, and they're putting it and applying it to the next car they're buying. So it just kind of like gives you a little bit of like a down payment. I can tell you there's a city or a town near us, they do this. They have a really good deal with a Ford dealership in their community that gives them a really good deal, but they also bring all their cars, their 60, 80 cars they have, to that dealership for all their maintenance, which they get charged for that. So for us, you know, we might get charged $29 for an oil change here at DPW, plus the cost of obviously the hourly employee. They're paying $100 per car for an oil change at that dealership. So the dealership gives them a little bit of a better, easier, I guess, exit strategy when they're trying to get rid of that car. Whereas we don't have that established, and we don't really have a lot of dealings with Unique next door.
But if you were doing that 3-year lease, that it's a buyout at the end, don't we own it then?
We would, but if we wanted to not give it to DPW or Parks and Recs, we could then go and try to sell it to get some money back to them.
If we ever want to change that strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you sell it this, I'm sorry, maybe I
That's
don't
all right.
understand the whole process, but you made reference to like, you can just give it to Adam and then when he gets rid of it, he puts it on where
Municipal bid, yep. He
Why
could do
wouldn't
that.
he still be able to
He
do
could.
that?
He could do that.
Oh, he
Yep,
could,
yep.
okay.
So
I
the
was-
buyout of the financed Ford section
Yeah.
is exactly that. We could buy it out and just whatever we own
Just
it.
like we do
Yep.
now with our vehicles. and
Because
pass it
essentially
down.
what we're doing is, we're taking the $43,000 and we're just spreading it out over 5 years, right? Or 3
3,
years.
yeah.
And then they're charging us we'll just call it $1,500 finance charge.
Yeah.
Once we get to that 3 years, we own it.
It's
It's our
theirs,
car.
okay.
We can either, I think it's like $1 buyout.
So when would you run into the scenario that you were just saying where you needed to go take it to the different dealers?
If we weren't
get a
gonna
better
pass
deal.
it on to anybody else, if
Okay.
we were gonna simply say, okay, this car is not going to DPW, it's not going to Parks and Rec, it's not going to Town Hall, doesn't go to fire, but you know,
Yeah,
we would
understand.
say, okay, what do we do with it now? We could either throw it on municipal bid or we could bring it back and try to sell it to a dealership. They just market it as, bring it back to Ford, we will give you some money, and then
Gotcha.
because they're gonna, sell it too.
Right.
But basically, they're gonna give us some revenue. Mainly what I'm hearing is that revenue goes back to the next cost of the next car.
Okay, gotcha.
But we do own it, essentially, at the end of it. Thank you
Right.
for clarity.
And
Yeah,
that's-
I just want to make sure I was
Yeah.
understanding.
And that's kind of the enterprise model. What you have is you have that third party that is guiding you through and meeting with you on an annual basis and saying, okay, we think it's advantageous to get rid of, these 4 or 5 cars this year because there's a market for, maybe the used market's a little bit better. And then you apply that. But in that model, I think it was after 3 years, all the existing vehicles are, for the most part, are gonna be, out the door.
Yeah.
And then you're just gonna be, some years you might recycle, 3 or 4, another year of the used market, and you might get more back, you might be doing, 5 or 6 where you're recycling them a little bit earlier. And you're trying to, you're not doing what our current model is to basically run the vehicle into the ground.
Yeah, so the Ford one is more like, you buy it, we just give you the finance charge, you own it, do what you want with it at the end. Enterprise is like, we're a partnership.
Right.
We lease the car to you, we tell you based on your data, this car is, I think we're gonna get the most amount of money this year to sell it back after 2 to 3 years, versus maybe this one can sit for 5 years and we can get more money. And then they're even throwing in there, if you don't need a police interceptor, we can get you a better deal on a Toyota or a Hyundai, It just depends on what you want, and they're more like into your either quarterly, yearly, of like, what do you want to do with your fleet, and we'll help you understand through the data
Right.
of like where we should go with this car. So yeah, what we might keep for 6 years, they might say, nope, in 3 years, we think we can get a better, return on this to sell it now.
Right.
Um,
And that you're still kind of looking into this, digging into more
enterprise one?
details?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've talked to one other department, most of the examples that they provide us are Maine and Massachusetts, would have a little bit different municipal accounting laws. Because that's the other hard thing that we're struggling right now with this, is normally when you sell a vehicle, you show that as the revenue side, and then you appropriate the full amount for the new vehicle. You don't take that revenue and then reduce the cost. So when we do a trade-in, it's actually on our books as 2 different accounts. It's hitting your revenues and your appropriations. You're not reducing the cost, and that's kind of how they modeled it to us, was, oh no, you're selling back vehicles, so your next year lease cost is actually going down, which you can't really do in municipal accounting.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess that one's on hold.
So I think the recommendation from the chief is,
Yeah.
is basically that right now the cruiser model is working.
Yeah.
But if you had to smooth that out a little bit, the lease option, but you're gonna end up paying a little bit more over time.
Yeah, that would be my only concern when we talk about long-term money-wise. I think there's ways we could look into this, and it would, selfishly, I like our process now, but I'm always open to something for the board wishes. I think our model works. It's been traditionally working for a long time. Again, if the board wants to kind of smooth out some yearly costs, but pay some finance costs, that would be an option through Ford. I don't know if that's the right financial decision, but that's for other people to make if they guide me that way.
I mean, looking at the two options, I don't think lease is the right way. I think it's the 3-year or the state bid purchase is probably the two that basically allow us to continue doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I think yours is the
That's
clearest.
what I thought.
You know,
Thank you. Yep.
Me too.
I would only just add, I don't want to take up too much time, but, you know, when it comes to the cost of the overall, for our purpose at the PD, you know, there are options that, just thinking out loud here, is you could potentially, instead of doing the 3 years on the line and then bringing it down to the command or detective side for another 3 years and then send it to DPW, wherever it goes, you could, you know, maybe buy one car that doesn't have that initial cost of the outfitting with the stripes and all that for like a detective's car. Keep that for 6 years, 7 years, but you know, you could just, but you would be taking now one of the 10 cars that are on the line and you'd be shifting them to DPW a little bit faster than 6 or 7 years. That would save the town. If we did it that way, you could save like a couple $1,000 depending on how we outfit it or not. But the bigger picture here is we always budget for every new car to have new equipment because Ford has always changed the vehicle so many different times with dimensions that we're stuck with not being able to recycle. Now, we've been lucky the last couple of years, we've been able to recycle, but you still have to budget for it because we're usually doing the budget before Ford releases that vehicle. So if we do it the opposite way, we don't budget for it thinking we can just recycle those, you know, some of that light bars, some of that technology like we've done in the past, and then we're stuck with a different car. Now we're stuck with either a default and we don't have enough money to even fund some of the stuff we need to get.
These prices include the fitting, Chief?
These prices are just for the vehicle.
Just the vehicle.
When I do my CIP, that bigger budget cost, that includes all of that.
Because it wouldn't matter if we did the 3-year or the outright purchase. We're still going to have to budget for the light bars no matter what.
Exactly. Yep. The cages, the striping, everything. Yep.
Chief,
They-
sorry. No, go ahead, keep going.
They don't offer any ability to retrofit those themselves, like,
I don't believe Ford themselves do. They work with other vendors. There is one vendor, I believe in Concord, that will buy the car for you. They'll put everything in for you, and it's like a one-stop shop. From what I hear from different police departments, there is some other costs there. Sounds like, you know, they're gonna order for you, they're gonna buy it for you, do all that, and then you just pay them. I'm not really looking forward to going down that model, only because I've heard from other departments that there's some hiccups there, and you're dealing with that particular vendor, whereas we're spreading ours out to 3 different vendors that seem to be working for us.
sorry, Allison.
That's okay.
Allison?
How many, can you run me through the vehicles that you have? Like, I know we buy 3 new every year.
Yep.
How many do we have on the road at one time? Like, what's the setup?
So we have 10 line cars, which are your patrol cars that you see out on the street.
Yep.
We have 5 unmarked or command vehicles, detectives vehicles. We have 1 pickup truck. We have 1 command post. And then we have a couple of other assets that are undercover that you don't
Yes.
actually see. And
The 10 was mostly what I was
Yep.
thinking of. So you replace 3 every year of that, like,
Yep.
the base 10.
because typically, well, yeah.
And then you move the 3 that have been
Yeah,
replaced
so if we get,
to
so like this
tier
year,
2.
we get 3, so
Yeah.
we're gonna go through our assessment, you know, what we have, and we'll take the 3 oldest, or depending what the problem is, essentially, from the command vehicle or detectives, the unmarked cars, we'll move those offline, they'll go to DPW, Parks and Recs, whoever needs them, and then the 3 brand new ones that come in, they'll come in striped with all the light bars, and then the 3 kind of oldest of the 10 will then shift to unmarked command or detectives, and then move on to the line. And it just kind of works its way through there. Now, sometimes we've had cars that have had problems, and they've been our problem, you know, cars, so we kind of say, here you go, Adam. Well, we're not gonna keep for another 3 years,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, you can, you know, and he either fixes it or doesn't fix it or sells it.
Yeah.
But that's essentially the model that and again, we try to do that where if we have X amount of vehicles on the road per shift, we try not to run the cars 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We try to give them about, one shift, we'll have this many cars out, and then when they're on days off, those cars are usually parked, and then this shift will take these cars, and it gives those cars a break. Obviously, depending on details and stuff like that, but like detail, like Eversource details and stuff like that. Officers will take those cars out, but they pay for those, so.
Do you know how often the police department is done with vehicles and there's no one that needs one? Like, is it almost all of them?
It's always,
go
there's
to
always,
DPW?
there's always
The
a
way they
need.
get rid of-
So at DPW, there's a few of the vehicles that don't get used year-round necessarily. Or, so it'll be used by their summer interns or some of their summer crews. And then whether the mechanics need it during the day, when it's not being used by summer interns. I think we've got one of the newer ones down here, one of the old problem childs for our building inspector, but no, I don't think we've ever had one.
Rick's got a couple, I think.
And then we use one, and if it has problems, I mean, usually you get them, they have some problem. And
Sorry.
it's how much, no, it's great, you can use them. And if it's too much of a problem, when one of these come offline, you put your hand up in the air and say, can I be on the list? And then you get one.
Yeah, and that's
So
usually.
generally, we're not selling them.
And the
at
one
the
that I
end.
have,
We're
and the one I have
passing them
goes
to
to the
others.
heap,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then gets sold for $500.
Yeah, usually DPW is managing, they're picking those, if it's 3 or 4, you know, they're picking the 3 worst, the ones that they're seeing the highest maintenance costs, the highest mileage on, and those are the ones that are going out to bid for people to come in and purchase.
Okay, and Adam's telling me that we used to have the old Crown Vics, the old cruiser. He said they got like $500-600 for me. Now he's saying, I think I put the average in there. He was saying they get anywhere from like $2,000 to $3,500.
Used car market went up.
Really? Wow. Good.
So even though we've spent $43,000, you know, the price of the car, after 10 years, we're still recovering maybe $35,000-4,000
Getting our
in the
money's
car.
worth, in other
Yeah,
words.
I think so.
Yeah.
But
So you said 3 new ones with 10, obviously. Are you going 3, 3, 3, and 4? Like or 3, 3, and 4? Like
we just typically rotate. If we're lucky enough to get 3 cars, we just rotate 3. We've just always stuck with 3.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever,
We never.
it's
We've
probably been
we've lost-
10 years where we're down, there was 1 year where we did 2.
We lost 1 year. We had 2, and then 1 year we did
One
the
from
truck.
Yeah, we
And
did
then-
one from the revolving fund, I
Yeah.
think, but it's always been just purchase 3. Just purchase 3.
And just because we've done 3, and then 3 went offline, and 3 went to DPW. I don't know the rhyme or reason. It's just 3 seems to work. We've asked for 3. I mean, I know that we did 3 and we lost 1 year, and we basically just kind of. And I know years past we've lost a couple, and then it took us a while to build back that fleet to get kind of modernized. So.
Yours is kind of, if it ain't broke.
Right, we kind of get it that way, and then hopefully it stays that way, because again, and not to get on that CIP speech, but these are the officers' offices for 12 hours, right? So we try to give them, not like the best, but a decent spot to work and live in for 12 hours.
I just think there's no financial advantage right now
Right.
of shifting that at this point in time.
I agree.
Shifting what, to like a leased option, you mean?
The lease for sure, like the lease is definitely gonna cost us more in the outrun. I do think that like the 3-year finance, it does have the ability to do some smoothing and basically drop it down initially. Though you're ultimately, as you start to look at the pro forma over a period of time, you are gonna be back up at that same level again. So it may take you about 6 years to like basically start to see that. But you are gonna see it again, so you may have some advantages initially, but it's still just gonna smooth back out.
Yep, agreed.
Okay. Let's call the fire chief when he's busy. Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome, thank you.
Yeah, there was a lot of information.
Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I appreciated, like, you ran
complicated.
with your assignment. And I was like, wow, yeah. Thank you.
We talked to her, we put out the numbers from I tried to get like a 10-year of like what we spent the money on and
Yeah.
where it could, you know, to use that for like a 10-year average of like moving forward, but
Yeah.
again, this is just the cost of the car.
Right.
Who knows in 10 years what the cost of outfitting and other stuff is gonna
It's
cost.
good to take a look at it, just to know.
You can't see far enough into the crystal ball.
Nope.
By then we'll have robot dogs or something running around.
Drone,
Yeah, something, probably right.
drone.
Chief, go ahead.
Okay, so I will go, as you can see the data in front of you, I will go as deep into this as you want. I worked with peers nationally to see what different types of programs there were out there. So just to get us on the same oranges to oranges, 4 different categories are used, and I used the categories: 1, purchase, so that's what we're currently doing, using the CRF, Capital Reserve Fund. Then a lease, which is leasing a vehicle like you would our personal vehicle, and you turn it back in. Then you have a lease purchase, very similar to what Chief Serena was talking about, is that you lease it for a certain number of years, and then you purchase it at the end. And then another option is very similar to if you go buy a personal vehicle outright, but the bank holds on to the title until you pay it off. Those basically seem to be the 4 different options. There was a significant number of financial institutions more than willing to finance some vehicles for us.
I'm sure.
So there's definitely, basically any bank that you want to use, you can use for financing, just like you would your regular vehicle. It becomes significantly different with fire apparatus in ours versus the PD's. Just as a reminder, our fire trucks, if you will, we replace those about every 18 years. So we're running right up against the maximum certification lifetime for those. As you saw with this year, us working with that engine, we can't get it certified much more than that. So along with that, you also get the probability of significant repair costs. So I think you got the notice that we have one of those, a 5-figure cost on one of our engines right now. So the probability of those going up after 10 and 12 years significantly increases. We're not the only ones who know this. The banks do also. That's why you also see in the leases that the maximum allowable leases for these, they max out around 10 to 12 years, depending upon the apparatus. Have not met a banker yet who's in business for losing money. Just a quick summary of it. If you guys want to go to the end, that's fine. But I just wanted, through that PowerPoint piece, is we have a lot of different vehicles, so I wanted you to have all the information for those vehicles. So I kept all 4 categories in there, so you can compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges, and then see it across the different type. Just a reminder that the ambulances and the fire engines, we have 1 reserve of each of those. So that's why we have 3 engines and we have 3 ambulances. Our newest ambulance, which is on order, and as we know, it's 3 years for them to build an ambulance right now, 4 years for an engine and 5 years for an aerial truck. So we currently have made orders for an engine and ambulance, and we're waiting for them to be built. Those are coming in. The difficulty with determining how long that is going to be is up to the market. That also affects our maintenance of what's supposed to be replaced and not getting replaced. So as we get down there, the forestry, the command cars, that type of stuff, we buy it, we keep it for its full life, and then it's pretty much dead at that point, so we get rid of it. The engine and the ambulances will come in, the newest one will be put front line, and that will move one ambulance to the back line to the reserve. So when a front line is out, or sometimes if we have like a larger call, engine 3 will go from off-duty personnel and we'll have that extra engine. Or like just happened a little while ago, we happen to have enough people in town where they took the ambulance for the third simultaneous medical call. So it's nice having those around because as you saw, if something was to happen, like we had a couple of years ago, we had the ambulance get into a collision, and it was 3 or 4 years before we could get another one. So we're going to be without that unless we were able to purchase something that we could find.
Chief, can we make the adjustment on the command pickup?
So the command pickup, Mark was sharp-eyed, caught. My mistake, yes, the command pickup is a F-350, not an F-550. That is correct.
Thank you.
No problem. Good eyes. So the summary, the last page in there, just kind of broke it down for you, but feel free to ask me any questions when you go through it. Is the CRF is what our current model. You'll see in my budget presentation for next year, what I'm asking is for $450,000 deposit. You've also been educated and agreed, which I'm very glad, is our last engine purchase is we did a delayed payment. So we placed the order, so we are currently earning interest with that money that's in CRF, which we can then apply towards the CRF, which will save us money over time. So using that money in there and gaining that interest annually as well as monthly will help us to decrease the amount of money that we need to ask the taxpayers for. So we are utilizing that interest now. Just as a quick reminder, is we used to do just prepayments, so we get a little bit of a discount on the initial purchase. We're now delaying that, so that way we can earn interest as well as a prepayment. So we're using that money, we're squeezing that lemon for every drop of lemonade that we can make. So we're using that more efficiently now. And having that CRF allows us to do that, which is huge. Then you see the other options there for the finance, the lease purchase and the lease, and the costs associated with those.
Chief, are all the vehicles in your packet purchased through the CRF or other means as well?
No. So in the CIP is the entire plan for all of our large equipment. So the fire engines, 1, 2, and 3, tanker 1, tower 1, and then you'll see we're adding the forestry in there, comes out of the capital reserve fund. Those are the only ones that come out of the capital reserve fund. While all of our apparatus are part of the CIP, the CRF only pays for those vehicles. The annual fire operations line are command vehicles, the utility vehicle, the boat, the hazmat trailer, which we're done with, thank you. And then the ambulances come out of the ambulance revolving fund. Does that answer your question, Josh?
It does, thank you. So the aerial, the engine tanker, and the forestry are all CRF?
Yes, sir.
But not the ambulance, or?
Correct, the ambulance comes out of the ambulance revolving fund. And I know our next topic is CRF, and that's why we basically already have a CRF for that, because it's a revolving fund.
Yeah, so really the command vehicle and the F-350, right? I get that?
The so the two Tahoes, the two F-350s, the UTV, and the boats, and obviously the trailers.
So on those, we're not purchasing them all at the same time, they're staggered as well, right?
Yes, sir.
How far apart are each one of them?
Currently, let me go to our CFE overview. So annual fire budget for the cars. So our next one comes up. Car 1 is planned to be replaced in 2028. 2029 would be K1, 2030 would be the UTV. Another pickup would be 2031. And then car 2 is due to be replaced 2033. That's the one that we replaced last year at the end of the year.
I mean,
So every 8 years, it's supposed to get replaced.
yeah, every years, but I didn't know.
It's for life. So it,
how far
usually
apart
like
they are.
every 2 years.
Yeah, those, like, I'm not a big fan of the lease necessarily per se, because like you're looking at the leases, they definitely stack up. But I do think the finance on those might make sense since they're larger purchases.
So, thank you for bringing that up, because I forgot to go over that. So if you go, just since Josh is talking about the command one, this kind of goes into what Chief Serino was talking about in the upfit. The upfit is really the issue. So if you go to any of these vehicles, but especially like the command cars, for example, what really takes us out of the running for making a lease a financial good decision is how much money we put in upfit of these. specifically the mobile radios that go into them,
Yeah.
the specialized equipment, all the graphics, that type of stuff. So if you look at that chart that I made for you guys,
It's gonna jack the line up every so years and you're just
so
gonna
that's
keep
the
ramping it up.
problem, is right now, we're paying that upfit cost every planned on 8 years, averaging, I think we're averaging about 9 to 10 right now. We only pay that cost one every 8 years. If we lease them and they're only here for 3 years, then we're adding that $20,000 every 3 years instead of 8 years. And then that's multiplied by all 4 of those vehicles.
Yeah, but these may make sense on the finance, paying a little bit in the interest, just to kind of smooth it out a little bit.
Sure. You can,
Yeah, and I think you could probably say the same for Rick has one utility pickup now as well.
Yeah.
That, I don't know, what do you do that every 10 years for the,
12, 13?
yeah, so I mean, you know, when you take that one and combine it with the command vehicles at fire and the trucks that he has, then yeah, it makes more sense to kind of smooth those out.
if we had vehicles that didn't require the upfit, I would definitely look into this and make a recommendation here, but it's just the upfit that's.
You mean for the
But
lease
Josh,
side?
Josh, yeah, you're
For the
talking
lease
about
side.
financing
I'm
it,
talking
not
about
leasing
financing.
it. He's talking about
Yeah,
financing it,
And it's
not
just,
leasing.
and then you can see the difference there is, we can definitely finance these, it's just, we're paying instead of earning.
No, I get that,
Interest.
but it's like $3,000 difference, but typically you're gonna smooth that out over the tax, and you got multiple vehicles coming in all at the same time.
And because that comes, like you're talking about, it's from the CIP, so that comes out of our annual budget.
Right.
Yeah.
It just may be easier to digest for some of
Yeah.
those on the budget committee.
I agree.
Although I was noticing am I right that you were talking about, you're calculating the financing for 8 years?
Because that's what we're doing for the life of the vehicle. So just to keep oranges to oranges. So what you'll see there is why you'll see, like if you, and that's why I wanted to show my math.
Yeah.
So you can see it, so we can compare orange to oranges, is how we would have to do. Right now, we're having an 8-year life expectancy for a vehicle.
Right.
That means we'd have to lease that vehicle twice, which means we'd also have to outfit it twice. So that's why you'll see those numbers increase there for those. Yeah.
The
But
models
if you
will
were,
change.
but if you're financing a shorter period, you're not financing it technically for 8 years.
No, you're financing it for 3.
No, but you're
No.
financing it for 3, but then you're probably starting your next
Well, you might-
finance on your next vehicle right when that one ends.
That's why I was asking how far apart they are, so then you smooth it out a little bit. So you're not paying $100,000 all at once, you may be paying $30,000 here, and basically it starts to ease
But
in.
for every,
So it
for
just-
every year.
Every year.
Just,
Every
so
year.
if we finance a vehicle, right, so if you're talking about a single vehicle,
Yep,
you can go to an auto dealer right now and say, hey, I wanna finance this for 3 years, or 5 years, or
5
10
years.
years.
yeah,
You still own it at the end.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's why, the lease makes no sense at all.
Yeah, I don't think we were considering, I wouldn't consider lease for these.
yeah, and then it's just,
But
it's
financing
just,
maybe,
the finance,
just
it's just the charges.
spread it out, yeah.
Yeah, the lease, like, we should just take it off of the list, like, it doesn't make sense at all.
I'd be in favor of that. I don't like these.
Well, it
No,
doesn't
but
make
we
sense
did-
for these where you're
But we
upfitting.
did also want to see the
Yeah.
options.
Yeah.
We wanted
Yeah.
to be able to legitimately say, we looked at leasing and it doesn't make sense in most cases.
It's nice to know that,
Right.
and like Josh was talking about, what is our goal?
Right.
Are we trying to do the most financially effective model?
Mm-hmm.
This definitely validates that we are. Especially how we're using our CRF funds now and our purchasing and delayed purchasing and stuff like that. So we definitely are, I mean, and hopefully you guys can see the math there is that this definitely validates we are doing the right thing. If we're trying to, if our next goal is to maybe smooth some stuff out, you know, it's all a balance. Do we smooth it out and pay a little bit more?
Right.
Yeah, I would actually say that we smooth it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Pay just a little bit more on some of those, because I think it'll help people digest some of that, because every time that big hit comes in, everybody's like, oh my God, here's another capital purchase. Versus, we know we have it, we're gonna keep it for 8 years, we're gonna smooth it out a little bit over a period of time, and it basically, it does more of a linear approach versus like this, like, you know, after COVID, we all kinda were in you know, a bad state with the vehicle market because they all shot up astronomically.
Yeah.
Right, so that smoothing probably would have helped a little bit in that.
And then we just have to run into default concerns with legal and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
so what would happen there? Do we know? Like,
So if you were going to take a lease or finance model to the voters for approval, and they approve it, then it becomes part of your default. If you don't take it to them, then the first year would not be in the default, and then the second year, as an operating cost, we would have to probably get a legal interpretation on that. You're really only supposed to put lease or multi-year agreements into default budget when they have been approved by the voters. So, but there's probably some towns or schools that argue that once you,
It's a contractual obligation.
no, it's not a contractual obligation from a default standpoint,
Okay.
but does it become an operating, a non-one-time operating expense approved by the voters that then goes, we would definitely need to talk to legal.
we'd have to look at that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you could take it to the voters, they may just vote it down instantaneously, then what?
It'd be another year without purchasing vehicles.
At all?
Yeah, and that's, I think that's the biggest struggle that we have right now is you get one bite of the apple in March,
Yeah.
and if it doesn't pass.
See, I would think that we would want to make sure that we get the budget as even keeled as we possibly can, make sure that everybody's rallied behind it, even if it had the financing piece in there, basically say, let's go after it. Because then you're saying the next year, it should become part of the default budget.
Maybe. That's what you need
Maybe,
to look at.
yeah, maybe. Yeah. And I mean, and ultimately is what does it come down on the tax bill? We're talking about a third of the tax bill, so when the other 2/3 go up, a lot of times we're the ones that.
That never happens, Derek.
Yeah, okay.
Anybody else?
And then the last one that you had in your packet was DPW. I know Adam's not here, but he did a very thorough job. His is a little bit different because he's really looking at 16 units. So he's really, or 67 units, and it goes, that supports highway, solid waste, cemetery, engineering, and maintenance. So currently, they've always done the pay as you go. But as you can see in his report, he's got a very old fleet at this point. His fleet has gotten significantly older. What he did is he did break out some different recommendations that the board may want to consider and continue having a conversation. Immediately, he talked about leasing a mini excavator to eliminate the most common rental, because that's one of those ones that they have to rent on a pretty regular basis. He also recommended selling the 4 curbside packers and consider moving to a 2-unit rental with an emergency on-demand backup. Transition for a roll-off truck to an on-demand rental to sell the existing 2004 unit. Sell some of the aging heavy equipment and replace with lease equipment, and then sell the 4 oldest dump trucks and oldest 1-ton, and then acquire via lease program. The other thing he has for future considerations are consider a DPW equipment special revenue fund,
Yes.
where the one thing he didn't put in his, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him before he left, was how would he fund that? And I don't know if he talked with you about
He did.
that? Okay, great.
He suggested, and Danielle maybe need to weigh in on this one, suggested that when they sell some of the vehicles, that they're able to put that in that special revenue fund versus it going back to the default.
To the general fund?
General fund.
That's something you could absolutely do. The RSA says appropriate revenues. So that, I would say that would be an appropriate revenue that when you're selling a vehicle, rather than it going to the general fund, to put it in that special revenue fund. I would caution, so sale of sale of vehicles last year, 19,000 we made. The year before that was 50,000, 2023, 41,000. So it can't be the only appropriation. It can kind of be the crutch that helps, a transition.
It could be a transition. I think we really need to talk through, like, how is that going to be utilized? Because I'm talking to Chief, like, we have to upfit some of the cars that are coming into. Would we use that fund to help with some of that? Would we use it to help in other ways, fire department or otherwise, do upfits? Like, because if we're going to take that money and pull it back into this special fund, I think we need to clearly articulate how is it going to be utilized, how is it going to help the taxpayers, because we're not asking for new funds, and be able to utilize it in that way. The curbside packer, Adam called me on my way when I was traveling out last week, and that one was very interesting to me.
I found it extremely interesting. I was like, because the taxpayers said they don't want to spend that money for that, and we need a packer.
So, you could also fuel some other things with selling those packers too. And according to Adam, the leasing program that is offered by this company would allow us to continue the day-to-day maintenance that we normally have to do. Tires, windshield wipers, that sort of thing still would be our responsibility. But maintenance, like major maintenance on the vehicle, if we had the replacement vehicle that they can bring through, they would bring in a replacement vehicle and we would get charged some amount of time for that because it's part of that process. But we wouldn't have to be paying for like the control arms, the engine, the transmission. None of that would be our responsibility any longer. And so it would smooth that out quite a bit and get rid of some of that wear and tear. Plus they would get rotated every few years, which we're not getting now. So that was very interesting. He called another town and talked to them. And the town that he talked to was very happy with the way that that's going right now.
Yeah, they said the swap outs every 18 to 24 months. A year and a half to 2 years, we're getting a new solid waste packer.
Yeah, I think we need to hear more about it
Yes.
from Adam when he gets back. But the way it was described to me, I'd be very supportive of that model. The one thing we'd have to consider is potentially getting rid of one or two right away, just to kind of like pull in some of those vehicles and then make sure that we move towards it the following year. So I think there's a plan of like the selling, getting, revenue back off of the vehicles that we have, and then basically starting that whole motion is what would have to occur. The leasing of the excavator, or that's what it was, right? The excavator or the...
It was a mini excavator.
Mini excavator.
Mini excavator.
They've had breakdowns continuously or actually don't have any vehicles, so I actually think the leasing of that makes sense.
They rent one.
You rent them all the time? Yeah. So it seems like Adam's made good progress on following up on some of these. He said he had some more work to do, so I think that we probably should at least hear what a more thorough plan is when he gets back.
Okay.
Can I just ask about the special revenue fund that we're talking about for future? Is that like similar to Parks and Rec where they get some fees and basically we're thinking it's the fees from selling the equipment that would be used, but is it not so restrictive like a CRF?
So it is it has to be established by the voters at town meeting.
Okay.
You have to explain it has to be for capital items, and you have to identify and the RSA says appropriate funds. So you have to say what the appropriate funds are. As part of that, you would have to identify the sale of municipal vehicles. Is it going to be all municipal vehicles? Are you going to commingle in the fire apparatus? Or, and that's where I think you're going to have to figure out how you're going to do that. But
If we wanted to fund it separately, would that be similar to the CRF or it has to be a separate
no,
warrant article?
so that's the one difference is you do not appropriate, you do not deposit into special revenue funds, so they're not like a savings account, they're only a place that you can put in special revenue. So you would, if the voters approve it, you set it up at town meeting, And then from that point forward, that identified revenue just goes in there, and it just starts accumulating.
Again, like Parks and Rec does with their fees for.
Yep,
right?
his is under a different RSA, it's a
Okay.
revolving fund, and
Okay.
revolving funds are very, very specific items. But you'll see a lot of special revenue funds in a lot of the cities. They'll use it a lot of the times, especially, I know Concord does it for any of their parking enforcement. They'll take the parking enforcement, those fines, everything that parking generates, and they put it in for a specific use. There is also a provision that you can do it for highway funds. Currently, we get highway block grants that goes to the general fund, and then we also spend out of the general fund for road plan. But you could say that you wanted to take a portion or some of the DMV registrations and put that specifically to highway.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, I think it does create another mechanism that we can, not have to go back to the well every single time.
Right.
Okay, everybody satisfied? You got 2 or 4 cents, Rick? Anything you want to say? You're Adam?
We have what? We have a.
I think Rick and I were kind of like the redheaded stepchild in this, because it's right now, so Rick has a truck that he buys, but it's once every 10 or 12 years.
We have an F-350 dump body. We bought it in my 16 years. We bought one in 2012. The bed rotted off, put a new bed on it. 2023, we bought an F-350 with a stainless steel dump body. In 2018, we traded out a car that the director had, and we went with an F-150 pickup in 2018. And then we have a hand-me-down police cruiser. That's our fleet. We're getting 12 years out of a vehicle. The 2018 F-150, I think I put that in CIP for 2033, 2032. They're a good 12 years out. So I'm not a math guy, and when it comes to leasing and all that, I really don't understand how that saves you money.
Probably
You're
doesn't-
getting a lot,
Probably doesn't in your
It doesn't.
case.
you're getting a lot of longevity out of that vehicle.
If you're changing out the vehicle all the time, at least it makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, yeah. But no, we go quite a long time.
Again, I think with yours, depending on the cost of the vehicle, like you may need to look at financing versus
Maybe.
purchasing outright.
And it might make sense in a few more years as he's approaching that point where he's gonna have to buy. That might be the point where we re-examine this.
Exactly.
Okay. You want to move on to,
Well, do you wanna, what I would suggest the board is we place this on the, action matrix and perhaps revisit this in August, and see what time.
maybe at the next meeting we have,
I'll have to check with Adam, see what his availability is. I know we're gonna have department heads in for the Q2 budget reports.
Yep.
Sometime in July, so we can add it to that agenda.
I think we should, and I think in August, we have to present some of this to the, we're meeting with the budget committee.
Correct, yeah. I
So-
think that's how you left it with
Okay.
that.
Okay. Now, move on to 5B, the,
Yeah, so capital reserve funds, you had asked departments for ideas for capital reserve funds. At your first page, I just have what you have for existing capital reserve funds and what their current balances are. The one note I would point out is the fire chief is gonna be making a recommendation to increase the deposit amount this year to $450,000. And I think Selectman Manzo, when you see a CIP presentation, he did a nice chart kind of showing if you do 250, if you do 350, how far you get behind. So that's the one change with the existing capital reserve funds. From the town hall perspective, the one capital reserve fund that I guess we would say you might want to consider is a technological capital reserve fund. We have some pretty big expenses coming up in 2029, 2030, and 2031. And then these are always ongoing replacements. This is our server infrastructure and then our networking infrastructure, as well as all of our facility access hardware. So, you know, this totals just about $1 million over those 3 years, and these are going to be recurring costs that continue to increase. So I think what I proposed on the third page is if you start putting in between $100,000 and $150,000 in this fund annually, and as we work to kind of balance, especially with the servers, those core programs that we might move off-site to cloud hosted versus hosted on-site. We might be able to reduce some of the costs there, but this would be potentially a fund that you may want to consider starting. And then also a revaluation capital reserve fund. This is specifically allowed by the RSA. This is, we've been fortunate that our assessor has done either statistical or full revaluations in-house and just hired out a contractor to do some measure and listing. Scott's been very clear with us. He's getting near the end of his career, and assessing is a very competitive market for those employees. There aren't as many assessors out there. So there is a high likelihood that at some point we may need to hire a third-party company to come in, and those can be very expensive. We're talking probably, you know, 600,000 ballpark, and that's something that
How many people in that group that comes over, how many people will there be?
I don't know how many they dedicate to actually doing the measuring and listing. A lot of it is, are you measuring and listing all? Are you focusing on certain ones? Are you doing a statistical revaluation? That's where you're kind of playing with the math behind the scenes. But that might be another one that you want to consider. The only drawback about, or not drawback, but one of the challenges with capital reserve funds is every time you're making a deposit, it has to be a separate ballot question. You have to identify where the funds are coming from, and it has to be approved by the voters.
Is that how other towns are doing it?
So, yeah, there are other towns, Bedford, Hooksett, a little bit further out west. I know Enfield has a pretty substantial capital reserve, and what they do is they do it as part of their CIP process. They've developed a CIP program, and it's, we're gonna set this much aside in each of these every year. When Bedford puts a ballot question on, it's one question.
One question.
And it is, do you support putting this much, and it'll identify each fund and how much is to be deposited into each fund.
So we could do that.
We could do that once they're established.
So we have to get them established.
We'd
first.
have to get them established, and then
And we have to seed them.
you'd have to establish them, seed them, and you would want to start explaining that you're moving to a different process. And, you know, I think we're working with the budget committee on this. You could kind of start to educate people on, it's a little bit different. Rather than pay as you go, you're saving ahead of time.
So really what we need to do is figure out which of these that we're going to create,
Correct?
seed, and then make sure that they're all on board in the way it moves forward, and make sure we get the CIP process changed to accept that as well.
Absolutely. Yep. And then in addition to mine, I know the police chief had put in at least just some of his equipment needs that are out there as well. I will say also, while you don't have a memo in here, DPW has 2 CRF. One would be bridge replacement and rehab. He's put that in the CIP budget for just $30,000 a year. And then a DPW facility CRF. And that maybe the board, rather than doing department by department facilities, whether you consider a town-wide facility capital reserve fund, the only drawback with that is then you have different departments that are vying for the same funds.
So nothing would change.
Now we're just fighting amongst ourselves.
You're fighting for it, yeah.
Or the maintenance piece falls under the responsibility of DPW moving forward.
There are some towns that do that, yep.
which would be an option too. And that may be worthwhile, because I know it's a topic of discussion around maintenance as well.
Do we make interest on that?
On a capital reserve fund? Yes. Right now, we're probably making about 4%.
4%, right?
Yep. Which is why the fire chief recommended we don't do a
Right, right.
pay ahead of time. We keep the money in that account for as long as possible.
Because then it makes additional, and then hopefully we have enough to get there. On the body armor one, Chief, well, it's not just body armor, as I'm like reading through here, so.
There's a few things, yeah.
There's a few things in here. So specifically, it's for technology specific to your area, is that?
Technology and equipment, yes, sir.
Okay. And is there a seated amount or something like that as a recommendation, or?
I had some averages in there of what we're costing with a few other throw-me's of like, if we were to get like a new, or any kind of new digital forensic stuff, that's pretty expensive off the bat. One thing I will note that I did not add into my less than lethal tactical side was we do have a taser agreement that's in a separate line, but that would be something I think we could pull our taser refreshes out of there, so you could add that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know the number that we're looking for to seed it, because there's a lot of numbers here. I don't really know what the future looks like, but I can tell you that just for example, like our drone program that we have, we're looking to kind of build off of that. But due to government restrictions and different vendors, it's really causing us to kind of move around and try to check out where we're going. And I can tell you that sometimes it's hard to try to figure out where we're going, because some vendors have American made, you can do it, which are obviously pretty expensive. So if we were to purchase a new drone and pulls out of something like this throughout the years, we would need to seed it and then really start thinking of almost like a CIP purchase, like how much is that going to cost. But we know predictably year after year, like the drone like maintenance of like the certifications of our officers plus the training, those are pretty well established. But I don't know what the answer is to that question. I mean, I would say throw a number at the wall and just see where we go from there. But I put some numbers of like what we're averaging per year of the cost to kind of give you guys an idea. But like, just an example, if we were to try to pull a cell phone device that can basically dump cell phones for search warrant and evidence like that.
Free discovery or whatever.
Those are like 25 grand, plus you have like almost $10,000 to $20,000 a year subscription.
Yeah.
Which we don't have, and it's, to be honest with you, it's pretty much every single investigation we deal with right now is with a cell phone. So we have to always go to somebody else to help us with that, which then we're using their devices, their subscription, and their time. So those are some things I'm thinking in my head, like if we were to have this revolving, or this reserve fund, and I could go to you and say, hey, we're looking to either buy something new or replace something as we move along, and not go to CIP and not hit the taxpayer like with a yearly budgeted thing saying, here's another $30,000 we can spend.
So what's your quick number that you just kind of came up with?
In my head, it's like 50,000.
Okay.
I just feel like, I think that's a good round number that we can establish it, and then we can start moving forward like where we're going with it. I mean, we need some less than lethal other equipment, pepper balls or beanbag devices that we just don't have yet. We're not putting it in the budget.
I like,
Do you have my taser in the budget yet?
It's
we took yours out, Rick.
No.
it's still there, Rick. It's the
I'll make that, I'll make that.
the honor ring taser that doesn't work, but we'll give it to you.
I like the pro forma, basically, that you would put here, Derek.
Yeah.
I think this would be beneficial to understand some of those, Chief.
I think we can start building it out for kind of what you've seen for recommendations for everything.
Yeah.
Because at this past town meeting, between the fire apparatus and the library, the voters approved $400,000 to deposit into capital reserve funds. And here you have the fire chief saying he's gonna need 450, I'm saying we need about 150, Adam's saying you could do another 50 here, the police chief saying another 50.
I
Library,
can throw in.
I know library board of trustees is
I'm
still
serious.
looking at
I
their
know,
list
of
of
course.
projects, so you're gonna have to figure out, you know, which ones you're gonna prioritize and which ones you're gonna ask for.
Exactly.
The voters last year did make multiple comments that this is the way they wanted to be seeing us go.
I agree.
And I would just caution the board, this, in 2026, everything came from fund balance.
Right.
Historically, we have seen deposits into capital reserve funds from fund balance pass.
But not from
When we
taxation.
asked a couple years ago for fire apparatus from tax appropriation, that failed.
Failed, yeah.
So,
Well, I think we're gonna have to seed a number of these from the unassigned fund balance initially. Then we're gonna have to get people used to some sort of amount that's occurring on a more regular basis. I think that's where, kind of where I'm asking, like, what's the pro forma collectively for all of these?
yeah, we can start pulling that together, yep.
That way it'll help us. Like on yours, Derek, like I'm looking at the projected CRF balance. You're seeing some negative areas here somewhere as well. So like,
Oh yeah, it's definitely not a perfect model, and you're gonna have to, are you gonna do a year where you, but I think what we've learned from the fire apparatus is even building it out 10 years, all of a sudden you can have a blip in the radar where the fire apparatus have increased 30% and that, so.
I would be happy with 5 to 10
deposit.
years, like of
Yeah.
a pro forma. Typically, if you go over 5, there's a lot of unpredictability, and even with the market right now, even after 3, you start to see a lot of unpredictable behavior. So even if we got to like 5 on some of these, to
Yeah, we
understand
can
some
do
of
that. Yeah, we can build in with the police chief, as well as the recommendation from fire chief, and we can build in Adams as well, and bring that back to you.
And the one you did not see from us, obviously, is our SCBA's. That replacement is about $575,000. The reason that is not in there is because currently, grants have been very good to us. The funds are still there federally for those grants, and having the CRF for that actually hurts us for that. So you're gonna see me come before you, the year, 2 years before they hit their end of life cycle for us to start applying for those grants to see if we can get them. Our last SCBA's were purchased through the grant, and it's a matching. But that's just to make sure that you guys do understand, yes, there is some equipment on our end too, but strategically, we are not recommending CRF at this time. If the grants go away for those, then obviously you're gonna see a recommendation from us.
I guess I do have a question, just based on what you're saying, Josh. You know, for like the bulletproof vest, we know that technology is always going to be used, right? Because it's just there, we use it. We know it's like a 5-year. It's a very constant. Although but we're not the answer here is like we don't know how many we're going to need per year. Like this year, we thought we needed at least 12. Now we need a little bit more, depending on how many officers are coming and going, right? But like for technology-wise, my thought and just question for the board is, as we move through this, sometimes that technology changes so fast that what we might think we're utilizing this less than lethal technology or the surveillance technology, IRs and thermal stuff, those can change within 2 to 3 years, which obviously if we're using a different device, the technology or the price can move or change. And that's just one thing that, just for my own clarification, you want me to put this out just with these specific items that I thought, or just in general, kind of like what we're technology-wise or what we're looking for? I don't, just want to make sure I give you guys the right information.
So when I think of like vests or tasers, you're typically buying those every year, right?
So our tasers, we do, yes, the vests we buy every year for each person that needs them, right? Or like I just got a new one this year because my 5 years is up, right? So we have that built out. Tasers are basically we've engaged with the company 5 years. We buy, let's say 35 of them at a tune of $150,000, and we finance that out 5 years, no interest. We just break out the costs operationally. But if we need another one because we hired a new person that we didn't, the board approves like a new person, we would have to now engage them in a new contract, which I think is what's happening with the drones, because eventually we're going to have to engage probably the same company that owns the body cameras, the tasers, and now the drones.
Axon, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to corner that market.
and they're doing pretty well with it.
Yeah, they were just on the lookout for a new head of product. So,
Sweet.
yeah.
But I think just for me to look at this and think about, it would be that technology sector and a few other things that, but again, most of this is in our operating lines, albeit not this high. But just so I understand, like, kind of what you're asking for, do you want us to put out these specific items or just the technology?
Typically, if it's an annual cost and you know it's going to be recurring, probably wouldn't go in the CRF, I
Yeah.
wouldn't think. It's going to be things that you think you're going to end up buying every so often that are going to be large chunks, or you need to be able to, like, make some shifts. Like the e-discovery technology, I think, would kind of fit into that boat, because you're going to have new devices that show up. It may be a different connector. You may have to buy add-on modules, you know. Drone technology may be the same sort of thing that you may need, because there may be some new anti-drone technology that you need, for instance, because you're going to now have to start combat with people who are doing something abnormal that they shouldn't be. So think of it like that. There are typically going to be some purchases that may be lumpy or longer periods of time, kind of like the networking gear.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, ready to move on?
Yeah, we'll refine that and bring that back for, again, that meeting that we have with all the department heads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rick, was there anything you needed to say about your?
Well, I think if you look at our model, I mean, we have the use of the revolving fund, which might collect, say, $90,000 a year type of thing. And then the use of impact fee money. Impact fee money has strings attached, meaning it can only be for something new that is an impact growth to the community. So that's very limited. We're gonna use it for these pickleball courts because they're brand new, okay? So that's great. So now if you look at a project, take the tennis courts, okay? Those are band-aided together. They're gonna die one of these days. That's $800,000 project. The Glen Lake waterfront needs to be totally redone. We're actually working with a company right now to get some ideas of what the true cost of that will be, but that could be $200,000. You look at our out years, way out years, about finishing the sports complex with the fields, that's another $800,000. Those are big projects. So if you look at your model that you have, impact fees, okay, sports complex, revolving fund, all right, 90 times how many years to get to where you gotta go. A CRF would make sense. A separate CRF would make sense. So you put $50,000, you seed it for $50,000, and then let it grow from there. Now you have different vehicles where you can pull from to apply for these said projects. But I mean, some of the projects are pretty darn expensive, and if you're gonna rely on this one revolving fund, you gotta wait quite a few years before you get anywhere. So I think that needs to be parlayed into the decision process as well. Just my 2 cents.
No, I think it's good, Rick, because I know there's been challenges of trying to fix certain things, right? Because we haven't had the funds or put that up.
We got knocked down our impact fees. We gotta spend some impact fees because we had 2 projects multiple years in a row that were rejected because it had taxation dollars attached to it, plus revolving fund money, plus impact fee money, but it all got shot down. So now you're kind of chasing your tail.
Can any of those be used to seed the CRF at all in any way, shape, or form? No.
No, no. I guess, impact fees, no. Impact fees are for expansion of use. And I don't see that there's any reason, even if it was allowable, to take money out of the revolving fund to seed a capital reserve fund.
Here's
just
my
thinking
concern.
consolidate.
Here's my concern about using monies to seed. I think anybody in their right mind, if that money's not coming out of your pocket, your pocket, and your pocket, yeah, go right ahead. Will can you trust it for years out that say, okay, now we seeded it, now we need to fund it? Maybe it just sits there at 50,000 and never grows. I don't know. That's where my brain goes.
What about things like the rail trail, Rick? Is that now in your purview as well?
It always has been.
Yeah.
And that, Josh, you're bringing up a beauty, okay? That's another beauty, all right? And
I'm pretty good at that.
Oh, that's a beauty, okay? And so right now, what happens is the Friends of the Rail Trail, they basically, and one gentleman, I'm gonna say his name, David Pierce, is a workhorse.
Yes, he
And
is.
that man is an icon,
Yes.
and he's gotta be recognized, anyhow. The work that happens there, they're funding, they do fundraising all the time. They've actually pretty much funded that 95% of everything that's over there.
100%.
We come in every now and then, I just had to take a tree down, okay? Which brings up a whole nother conversation, I got another abutting tree. Where I'm going with this is at some point, we need to, in our recreation department, put monies in for repairs. You got all the bollards are rotted. You
Yeah.
gotta replace all the bollards.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna run some numbers on that and get that. We're gonna put that into our operational budget. Sit around this table, you all know where that's gonna go. We're gonna go into a budget meeting, and then we're gonna get all these numbers, and you're gonna say, okay, that's gone, that's gone, that's gone.
Yeah. Those make sense in the CRF, Rick, I think.
So those are the little nuances of what is building up, and we got a plan for it. But I do think you put these monies into an operating budget, you know, and you have all these increases, what's gonna go?
I think the thing that we've seen with the capital reserve funds is once you decide which way you want to go, we really just need to be clear with the public of what you're setting the capital reserve funds are up for, what you see in the future,
Yep.
and how you're going to spend it, and stay true to that. I think the library and the select board did a good job this year identifying specific projects that it would be used for, and then it's just kind of that follow along with that.
I think
you
that's
gotta
where the
be-
pro
you-
forma will help in that, Derek.
Can you, in those, like, like in our instance, could you say for recreational improvements, or do you have to define it by saying for the Glen Lake waterfront improvement? Do you have to define it for,
So.
this is a question.
It says for capital projects, if it's a recreational facilities, then maybe that's specific enough, and then in your voter's guide, you're saying which recreational facilities and when you see those projects coming up.
It's kind of political.
Because if you go very specific,
Very
you're
political.
stuck with that.
You're locking yourself in very much, but I think to give an example is okay.
Yeah.
And we should give an example of something that we're planning and how we're planning on doing that. I think that's beneficial. So, rail trail and those bollards is a prime example. Definitely something that we should consider. People use the rail trail all the time. Something that they're gonna buy into because like the community just enjoys that collectively. I think everybody does. They don't understand that, like to your point, that David and the Friends of Rail Trail basically put a lot of time and effort into making sure that happens, but it falls on the purview of the town to maintain.
Yes. It's
So-
coming to that point where now, hello, we gotta take it. I mean, financially take it.
Adam's comment before we move on to this one, Chair. Adam's comment to me on the bridge one was that he expects that there is going to be more work on that in the future besides just Henry Bridge. I think that's what Adam was saying to me. Is that what he said to you too, Derek?
Yeah, we definitely have other bridges that are gonna need work in the future, so.
So,
Okay,
and
okay.
that, otherwise it would impact like the road fund or whatever.
Okay, can we move on? Parks and Recs.
What are you doing now?
Thank you, guys.
Your bid?
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief and Chief.
excellent.
Had a dragon over there.
No dragons.
Hey, did you guys get this sheet or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Think
We got
so.
the
Bid one?
handwritten.
Handwritten one.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's okay. That's all right. So we received six bids on the pickleball courts. Okay. quite a wide range. Actually, there's a pretty good, I'll go through it. So you had one Vermont recreational surface and fencing at 177, 200. We had Danbury Construction at 232, 750. Peckham Road Corp, 247, 570. Core Construction at 248, 500. Blue Ribbon Property, 298, 880. And Belco Landscaping at 307. So there's like a high one, low one, kind of tight in the middle. What I did is I reached out to 5 of these people, and I just confirmed, okay, what do you have for fence height here? What do you have? Is it all black vinyl? Yes, yes. Your surfacing, I wanted to make sure there was 4 different coats of paint. Yes, they all did that. There's a little walkway from the little turnaround right there going out. Do you have that in there? Yes. Do you have all the drainage in there? Yes. So I kind of went through it trying to make sure that they were bidding on what we asked for. What I found is the gentleman, the Vermont Recreational Surfacing and Fencing Company, he's basically doing it all. Okay, he's contracting. The only thing that guy is contracting out is the paving. Every other one of these companies pretty much are like construction guys. So they're gonna do all the underground work, the drainage, then they contract out the paving, then they contract out the painting, then they contract out the fencing. So I think when you look at it, when I looked at it, that's where I saw these 232s to the 298s to be very comparable, all right? So I called Vermont Recreational Surfacing. Gentlemen, they've been doing this business forever. He gave me the Concord, New Hampshire, Recreation Director's contact information, David Gill. I know David pretty good. And then he also gave me their facility guy, Lou, I forget Lou's last name, anyhow. And I spoke to the 2 of them, David first, and David can't say enough about the guy. He's done many, many projects for the city of Concord. He's basically redone, he's built brand new, he's painted, he's done fence work, etc., etc. Lou, same thing, Lou said the same thing. I also contacted Mike Atkins, who is the AD out in Keene, New Hampshire, because he did a addition to their tennis courts for the high school. Talked to Mike. Mike couldn't speak. He speaks very highly of him. Bottom line, cut it all short, the commissioners would recommend Vermont Recreational Surfacing to do this job.
And we have all the funds, Rick.
Yes, so your funds, okay, so your funds for this, we're gonna use $130,000 out of impact fee money, which is sitting right now at $203,000. So it'll leave a little bit in there. And then the balance is gonna come 100% out of the revolving fund. If there are any said change orders to happen, it'll come out of the revolving fund.
I'll make a motion to approve the Director of Parks and Rec to go under contract with Vermont Recreational Surfacing and Fencing Incorporated in the amount of $177,200 and to use $130,000 out of impact fees and the remainder out of the revolving fund.
Second.
Okay, motion by Josh, second by Richard. That's a question, when would he start and how long would it take him?
Can I ask my next question? Can you authorize Derek or I to make this contract with the guy like tomorrow?
For tomorrow, I don't think I put a time frame on there. I can say I'm willing to amend my motion to allow Derek to also help you with the contract.
And then we could probably be the end of July, middle to end of July.
You amended your motion?
I did.
You seconded?
To start, begin.
To start by
begin.
the end of
Okay,
July.
end of July.
There'll be a little bit of work in front of that, but this dude here, It'll be the end of July.
How long does it take?
He's thinking, the biggest time is 20 to 30 days. Once you put the asphalt down, you gotta let it cure. So that's your biggest time frame, right there. He's hoping to have it done by October.
Okay.
He did say if, depending on Mother Nature, we might be able to get all the asphalt down and all that, and we may have to wait until spring to coat it. They kinda all said that.
Okay.
Okay, it's motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Okay, town administrators report.
Yes, on the table, you had a revised consent agenda. We did pull back one employee status report. But you have, in admin, you have a full-time clerk resignation. In police, you have patrol transfer to school resource officer. You have one transferring out of school resource officer. You also have one for school resource officer. This is retroactive back to last year. You have 3 full-time senior patrolmen. This is a promotion in the CBA. You have a full-time master patrolman promotion, also from the CBA. You have a full-time firefighter getting a bachelor's degree differential for the CBA. And then you have 3 seasonal laborers that are new hires in Public Works. Parks and Rec, you have a number of seasonal hires and rehires. This is your counselors and trainings, counselors 1, 2, head counselors, seasonal ground, and your lifeguards. You have your union pay changes effective July 1st, 2026. These have all been previously approved by the voters. You have a letter for legal services authorization for New Hampshire Municipal Association. This authorizes the town administrator or the assistant town administrator to reach out for legal questions. You have a couple of proclamations. You have a motor vehicle junkyard and junkyard operator license for Force 5 Automotive. This is doing business as Herbert's Used Auto Parts on Shirley Hill. And then you have a waiver of municipal liability for a building permit on a private road. This is Allard Road that was approved at your last meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Josh, second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
At your next page, you have a recommendation from the trustees of the trust fund to reappoint Brian Lombardi to a 1-year term as an alternate member of the trustees of the trust fund.
Motion to reappoint Brian Lombardi to a 1-year term as an alternate member of the trustees of the trust funds with a term expiring March 31st, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Richard, second by Allison. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
And if you can just give me a second, for some reason, I had a bottom part to that memo, but Word it did not convert over, because the library board of trustees also had a recommendation for a volunteer appointment.
Yeah, that was, I think I saw that in
Yeah, it's
It
not
was
the
in the
paperwork, you had it
And
there,
I'm just,
but not here.
Christina Barry.
Christina Berry, this is for reappointment as an alternate member for a 1-year term as well.
Okay, I'll make a motion to reappoint Christina Berry to a 1-year term as an alternate member of the Library Board of Trustees. It's just a year, right? It's not.
Yeah, by statute, it's only for 1 year.
Yep.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Richard, second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Your next page, you have some funding options for the Goffstown Public Library elevator repair. We did project out our town-wide benefit line. One of the things that we did not do is we did not reduce this down to the amount proposed by the Budget Committee. So we think we're actually going to be a little bit closer to what the Budget Committee proposed. So there is going to be about $175,000 underspend in this line, so you could do a budget transfer to pay for some or all of this repair. There is also, again, the Capital Reserve Fund that was established in 2026, and what I tried to do here is highlight, they have a considerable number of projects in that, and to the tune of just over $440,000 estimated. So if you were to continue using the capital reserve fund as the library board of trustees initially voted, eventually those projects will need to be paid for, or you could wait until we do our Q2 budget reviews and see if there are other lines that you want to pull from.
I would recommend we wait until the Q2 budget line.
Can we fund that 37,000 that they were here?
So we're saying that you could do it from the benefit line. That would, we think there's gonna be 175,000 underspend, so that would drop that down to about 140,000 for any other contingencies that come out through the years. I know the fire department has a pretty significant engine repair that they're gonna be having here shortly. So again, you could vote to do that budget line transfer this evening, or you could wait until the Q2 budget reports.
When are we doing the Q2 budget, like summaries?
I've got to confirm with department heads availability, but it'd either be the 13th or the 27th of July.
July.
Yeah, so your next two meetings.
And do we know the timing of when they need this money for?
So they have already put in the order
I
for
know.
the part. The part
I
is
get to pay
out.
for
I think right now they are scheduled to do it out of the capital reserve fund. And as that bill comes due, we'll seek reimbursement from the trustees of the trust fund. So I don't think it's necessarily, you can wait a meeting or two if you feel more comfortable doing that. You can definitely do that, and that won't impact the timeliness of this project.
They probably have a 30-day pay as well on it, right?
Probably.
I need to check, I don't remember off the top of my head.
When is the repair?
So they paid 50% up front.
And
So
they ordered the part,
they
and
ordered
then
the
when
part.
it comes in, they'll reach out to schedule. So
Okay.
They estimated about 6 weeks, so like mid-3rd week of July roughly.
And when's our next meeting?
The 13th of July,
And that's when we're doing the Q2?
likely. Yes.
Okay. And I would say we just wait until the Q2.
So, but it's already been, half of it's already been paid, but do you just pay from the general fund and then
Yep.
we will reimburse from?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if we
From
did
their
it from
CRF,
our
if that's what
liability
we
account.
decide.
Normally, if we're gonna pull it out of the capital reserve fund, you pay it out of liability account, and then we have to go to the trustees of the trust fund and actually seek reimbursement.
Okay, so we're not mucking them up or holding
Nope.
them up by putting this off a little
No.
bit
Okay, all
to
right.
see what the whole Q2 looks like and just make sure that there's no other disasters.
When's Chief bringing the repair thing?
Yeah, that Q2 review, we'll see it then.
Yep.
Okay, then I think we should wait on the Q2.
You need a motion?
No. Tab 6D, you have the civil forfeiture recommendation. This is for unregistered dogs. The good news is the numbers are down a little bit this year. So we have 179 unregistered dogs from 139 households. So what we're requesting is for you to authorize the town clerk and chief of police to issue civil forfeiture letters, including the $5 admin fee.
I'll make a motion to authorize the town clerk and the chief of police to issue civil forfeiture letters, including a $5 administrative fee per household, to be delivered via first-class mail through the U.S. Postal Service to keepers of the unregistered dogs.
Second.
Motion by Josh, second by Allison, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
And then the final item I have is a renewal of 2 multi-year software contracts. The first is SolarWinds, which is an IT ticketing asset platform and remote support platform. They came in with pretty significant increases, so Brian worked with them to get a pretty good discount in the first year, provided that the board approve a 3-year term. And then also First Light Dark Fiber. So this is our dark fiber that provides the town networks in between all our buildings, as well as our voice lines, our internet connections, and all that.
I don't know what Brian said to First Light, but great job on that, Brian, to make that happen. I'll make a motion to authorize the Information Systems Director to sign the agreements as presented.
Second.
Motion by Josh, second by Richard, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, any old business? Hearing none, any new business?
I have one, Chair.
Good, good.
I, unfortunately or fortunately, was running this morning by the intersection over here near the town hall going down Elm and Main. And there was an incident where a young child was hit today, luckily not horribly when I arrived, but it does just brought something to my constant forethought that I think it's been discussed time and time again that we need some sort of traffic management over there. And I think that we should review that again and maybe consider either putting that in the upcoming budget or seeing if there's some way that we can handle that a little bit differently, because I know there's been a number of accidents over there before, and it's just often a very busy intersection across the board, and I would hate to see somebody else get harmed again in that intersection.
If I'm right, I think there's been some talk about fixing or redoing that intersection, right, over the years?
It's been many years. The last time it was talked was the town had a federal grant, which was called a CMAQ grant, Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality. Those were federal funds. Actually, that was probably more than 10 years ago. And there were some restrictions based on that federal grant because it was air quality. You were prohibited from looking seriously at traffic signalization. It was more traffic calming and more rotary, those changes. So the town ended up not made some small improvements with some of the cobbling and some of the traffic calming, but beyond that, there wasn't a whole lot of redesign at that location.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we even need redesign as much as we need just some major traffic management there in general, because
You think of like a light, Josh?
Yeah,
a light would be fantastic because people are always guessing when they're gonna go, and I worry about Chief Sereno's staff being out there managing traffic in the morning. I'm just thankful nobody was hurt this morning to the point.
That's what I was wondering, whether there was traffic lights planned already done in the past.
There's been multiple studies in that location, but no significant changes proposed.
Or action, and I think we really need to take action there, is kind of what I'm saying, and, before I go any further, chiefs, your guys' teams responded flawlessly this morning. You should be proud of how they responded, very quickly, to the point. Luckily, everything was okay, but it was nice to see how quick they responded.
So how would we go about,
So I guess that's a question for you. How do you want to approach this? Normally, if a resident came in and said, you have a troubled intersection, I think you should make these improvements. We send it to highway safety for at least data gathering and recommendation. Does the board want to first send this to a highway safety committee for discussion, data gathering, and then bring back a recommendation? Or do you just want a history of, and for you to discuss it directly with Adam and Chief Sereno?
Can I ask the chief a question?
Sir.
Chief, do you think we really need to send it to the committee, or do you think that we have enough past history that we can get something out of that and make a recommendation?
Yeah, so I think just for the boards, to answer your question, the board's information, our traffic highway safety committee, when we do the studies, are done typically by a police officer, right?
Yeah.
Who's not a traffic engineer. So I think we could send it to us, but you're gonna get basically the data that I can support based on the numbers through the data we have, rather than having an officer sit there and measure what they think might be some of the information. That one, this intersection specifically, I think we would benefit from collecting the data and maybe, either as a community talking about it or talking to a traffic engineer that actually does this type of work on behalf of people or communities. I don't think going to the highway safety, I think going to them for the official part would be, probably the recommendation, but I think having us do the whole study, I think it's beyond the police department. So, we could have it, but I would probably come back to you guys and say, we think it should go to, and Mark can help with this. The committee would probably say, here's what we've done in the past, here's some of the data, we would recommend this. So we could take it, I just don't, I'm not gonna assign it to an officer to sit there, because I think that, A, it's a lot more information than they can handle.
Yeah, to me, it feels like it'd be a waste of time to do that.
Yeah,
when
we're
we
just
already know
delaying
it's
it.
I just wonder if it's more of the, to Derek's point, if it's more of the procedure to have us as the highway safety committee for the community, because we take in, if this was a citizen, it would, not that you're not a citizen, but I mean, if this was like, we have other road problems that the citizens come to us and we kind of look at it, I think that would be probably appropriate to go to the initial part of it, and then what comes from there would probably be coming back to the board to say, here's what we think. But again, that's gonna take a few months to do, because our next meeting's not until, I think, September.
And it's gonna change, school's done, or almost done.
And to your point, Josh, and just to add to it, there was a crossing guard in the street today who told that person, again, I'm hearing this third party from my officers, but it sounds like they were kind of told, whether they understood that or not to drive away, not to make that left-hand turn, because the little girl was in the crosswalk. So there was some communication issue there, so having a traffic light or having a person standing in the street, I'm not sure, it's, because sometimes people are gonna just.
I don't think we're gonna mitigate
Yeah.
accidents there, but I think minimizing them would be key, because there's probably been a number of accidents
Yep.
there over the year.
I mean, to the point where you're saying, and just from the data that I know off the top of my head, it is a hot spot for our town. And it is, you have two different major intersections there and High Street that play into this. And everybody's guessing of like, what's the best spot to kind of cut somebody off and hopefully not cut somebody else off over here and get into the traffic flow.
There's too much guessing, like.
Yeah.
If you're gonna take a left onto Main from Elm, you
Yeah.
can sit there for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I've done that.
And then coming off of High Street, trying to make a left and then
Yeah.
cut people off
the
there by
library.
Sully's and then try
Yeah.
to cut another person off. It's a complex intersection, but I
And
think.
I've been to plenty of other towns that have just as much complexity in some of their intersections and have lights that basically are
Right.
Yeah.
timed.
Yeah.
Right.
They keep that traffic moving
Yeah.
and allow people safe passage.
It might be a question that we can tap into Adam next week to kind of see if, based on his engineering mind and then him dealing with some of the traffic engineers, if it's something that'd be best for them to kind of look at a higher level.
So do we need a motion for that, or?
I wonder what it's gonna look like with the closure of the bridge too, because more people are gonna have to go up through there in
That's
that
gonna be a
intersection,
huge
starting
traffic
tomorrow.
congestion
It's
right
gonna be
there.
a nightmare.
And I'm massively concerned about that.
Yeah,
Like,
as you should be.
and it's just gotten worse over the last
Yeah.
several years.
It's not
Like
gonna
more and
get
more
better.
traffic.
Okay, how do you wanna get the ball rolling?
I like to,
As quickly as possible, I would say.
So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
maybe
seriously.
what you could do is have Adam gather some traffic engineer costs. What it would be, because when the Wallace Road roundabout was reconfigured, I don't know if you recall, there was we were having semis going up over the planter. And they actually cut that back and they've redesigned that with help of a traffic engineer. So maybe Adam, just starting point is just what would the cost be to potentially do that?
I'll make a motion to have the director of DPW provide some cost on traffic management of that intersection.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Josh, second by Allison. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay.
Thanks, chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, chief.
And I have one too. The Joint Loss Committee was talking about accidents the other day, and someone from one of the departments got injured shoveling snow. You know, it's one of those situations where this, I don't know, might have been plowed or not, but, the snow builds up and you go out and you don't want to wait, or, somebody's got to do it, so a perfectly healthy employee goes out and does it and injures the shoulder or a leg or something like that. And we thought it would be a good idea to explore options on if we can minimize that. And I don't know if Derek can check into that, if there are any options that we can have someone come in and keep an eye on that rather than have employees go out and do the shoveling.
Would it be Derek, or would we ask Adam to basically do that if we're thinking about maintenance of the buildings?
We can work with all department heads, because right now, Rick and his crew do a great job during normal business hours, providing those services
We're
to,
the Manuel boys.
But I think there's definitely that question for after hours
We know how to
or,
use a shovel.
or weekends, when, other departments are still, having,
They will.
so.
Well, if is Rick's team the one that's actually doing that now?
They do it for town hall, they do it for library, they do it for Grassmere Town Hall, but they're not providing those services on the weekends for police, for fire. They're not doing those,
After 3:30.
they're not doing them in the afternoon and the evening when if we have a public meeting. Let's say it snowed hard enough where it snows, but not hard enough where you're canceling a meeting. We're generally having staff here.
So we'll leave that sitting underneath Rick's purview for the time being and think about,
We can bring forward some
I'm
options.
asking.
We can bring some options for you, because anything moving forward, we have not budgeted for this as a contracted service.
That's
So
what
if-
I'm asking.
If we're gonna do it as a contracted service, starting before the end of the year, we would have to set aside some funds for that, and then we'd have to start budgeting for it in the future.
Okay.
But we can start pulling some of that information together for you.
It doesn't seem like much, but there was a pretty, pretty bad injury from that, it just takes a second, so, okay, so we got,
Well, we need a motion, right, for that?
Yeah, it'd be.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to have the director, Derek, director of the town, basically work with the other directors to come back with options on maintenance on hours and off hours moving forward for the upcoming years.
Second.
motion by Josh, I heard Allison first, second, and any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, anything on the action matrix?
So we are still gathering information how the different departments do uniforms, so bring that to you at a future meeting. I will say on July 13th, you will be having a public hearing to accept and expend grant. This is for the proposed fire engine replacement. So we'll be having that, and then you've got the list of the vehicles that are here.
Yeah, there's already been some discussion on that on some of the forums. Hopefully, there's been enough clarity based on some of those posts that this was already planned. But I suspect that some people will show up. We just need to be very clear about the planning process, everything like that.
Meaning it's not a new fire truck, it's the fire truck we were already
Correct.
getting.
Okay,
You tell them.
open the floor again for public comment.
Oh, nothing.
I don't see anybody here for public comment.
Thanks, Ron.
Oh, thanks, Rick.
You're welcome. Okay, close public comment. Is there any non-public tonight?
I don't have any non-public.
Gee, we get to go home.
Entertain a motion?
Motion exit.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion adjourned.
I'll second either.
Motion by
exit.
Richard, second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
So much confusion that we never have that happen, so.